I'm Fred Hyde, and as a new superintendent at Polk County Public Schools, I am truly excited that our district is creating a new strategic plan to help improve our schools and better support our students, families, and community. I want to thank everyone who was able to attend some recent community forums held throughout Polk County. We had some fantastic conversations together, and I really appreciate that you took the time out of your busy schedules to share your thoughts with me. These forums were only the beginning of how you can help us develop our next strategic plan and to help, more importantly, shape the future of our educational system. A new survey has been launched to get your thoughts on what you believe, what skills, attributes, traits, and characteristics are most important for our graduates. And we truly want to hear from everyone. We want all stakeholders in our community to share their thoughts on how you feel we should be preparing students for success in their lives. You can access the Portrait of a Graduate survey by visiting polkschoolsfl.com. This survey is based upon the framework established by Battelle for Kids, a national non-for-profit organization that collaborates with school systems to improve learning outcomes. The survey contains a list of 30 possible qualities or competencies. The most effective way to fill out this survey is to carefully read all the definitions first. Trust me, each one sounds equally great. What we're asking you to do is to select the 10 most important or valuable competencies for a student to possess upon graduation. If you don't see an important competency on the list, don't worry. You can add up to 2 of your own, but you must provide a detailed definition to accompany those terms or phrases. By completing this survey, you're helping to guide the development of our strategic plan. We will compile this feedback, inform the community of its results, and design our strategic plan's goals to target this vision for our graduates. Also, please encourage others to visit polkschoolsfl.com and fill out this survey. Thank you for helping us take this important step to help transform our schools and better serve our students.
It's exciting whenever a new school opens, and Polk County Public Schools has tripled the excitement with the opening of 3 new schools. Elementary schools Willow Oak and Bellacita, and high school Davenport High School.
Davenport High School is Polk's newest high school. We're excited to be here. We are the home of the Broncos. We offer academies ranging from our freshman academy. We'll have academy offerings in hospitality, modeling and simulation, fine arts, and game design.
Willow Oak School is a fantastic place for students and our faculty and staff. We are super excited, having grown up in Mulberry, and to be able to come back and open a school in my hometown. It's been just very exciting and humbling all at once.
I just enjoy this area. I've worked in this area for about almost 20 years now. Everything in this area is pretty much new. It's just exciting to really be here. My favorite thing so far has been the great staff that I work with. They're fantastic people to work with here in beautiful Polk County.
Along with their brand new state-of-the-art facilities, each school will have one-to-one technology, meaning that each student will have a laptop or iPad they can use for learning. Teachers and students are very excited to get to work this school year.
Meeting these little Willow Oak Blue Jays has just been phenomenal because they are really eager to be here at school and they're really eager to learn. So I'm really excited to see the growth of these students.
I want to bring that young energy, that fresh out of college type, that teaching style, the way you engage, either like a group activity, something where they're not just listening to me talk, they're engaged, they're doing it as well just as much as I am.
This year at Bella Cita, I'm most excited about all the endless possibilities and working with new state-of-the-art technology.
I love soccer and I can't wait to play on the soccer field when it opens.
While Bella Cita Elementary was built using impact fees, Willow Oak School and Davenport High School were built using a combination of impact fees and the half-cent sales tax. The half-cent sales tax is also being used to make other updates and modernizations to schools like Bartow Senior High and Mulberry Senior High.
I want to thank the people of Polk County for voting in the half-cent sales tax. You should really know that your half-cent sales tax really contributes to 400 projects in the Polk County School Board that would not happen at all if you weren't paying the half-cent.
To learn more about all of our capital projects, visit polkschoolsfl.com. And also follow Polk County Public Schools on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Good morning and welcome to the Polk County School Board work session for October the 12th, 2021. And I want to thank everybody for being here this morning, and in particular our staff who are always here ready and eager to help and address any questions that we may have today. So at this time, with no further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Superintendent Hyde to lead us in our work session today.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of staff, and community members. Just for the record, so that everyone understands, Ms. Kay Fields, board member, is also joining us remotely, so she is live along with us. So this morning, before we begin, I'm going to ask Brian Warren and Steve Cochran to come to the table because they'll be doing a brief presentation this morning on open enrollment changes as far as our timeline. Prior to that, I wanted to share an update with the board. We have received 2 formal submissions to help lead us in our strategic planning. One is from Dr. Frejo, and the other one is from Ms. Long. And so I will be submitting both of those for your review following this meeting. We have tentatively scheduled, as you know, November 1st is our first meeting. That is solely on procedures and policies, will be led by the Florida School Boards Association trainer. And so that meeting will be a half-day meeting so we can have those discussions prior to the board making its nominations and selections for board chair and vice chair and other roles. And then additionally, I would ask board members, and I'll summarize this in an email as well, to please look at your calendars for November 29th, November 30th, and December 3rd to support our strategic planning review. So one of those days would be a summary provided to you from the school district, as has done previously. There'll be a presentation by each of the primary departments who had a role or an area of responsibility in the prior strategic plan. You'll receive a summary as to the outcomes and or any concerns that they had. And then second to that will be the discussion about our subsequent or our new strategic plan, what goals and initiatives will be carried forward, remain priorities. So again, November 29th, November 30th, and December 3rd are the first three tentative dates, as the board had requested multiple dates to select from. Ms. Reynolds and then Ms. Cunningham.
Do you want us to send our availability to for those dates?
I would ask you to send those to Ms. Vega and Ms. Winchester.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ms. Cunningham?
Yes, sir. Are we going to be discussing those proposals today, or are we going to do it at the next workshop?
You'll do it at the next workshop, but
Okay.
I will send those to you today so you have time
Perfect.
to review those.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Allen.
Just briefly, looking at that schedule, I'm
Right.
not sure if any of the other board members have already signed up for the FSBA
Right.
It's
meeting.
December 3rd is the
Yep.
SBA conference.
Or can you click from there?
That was what I was,
I'm sorry, Dr. Allen. Was that a question for me? I apologize.
That's all right. I was just addressing the board because the FSBA conference is that week. So I was just curious if anybody signed up for that conference at this point.
Okay.
So we'll probably need to eliminate the 3rd as an option then.
We'll provide additional dates then.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. First item again is a discussion about open enrollment presentation. Ms. Fields?
Yes, good morning. I wanted to know if there's a time for the dates for November the 29th or the 30th. Is that going to be a morning, all day, or what?
It will be a full day,
Starting roughly at what time, please?
probably 8 a.m.
Okay, 8 a.m. to 4?
8 a.m. to 3 or 8 a.m. to 4.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Warren and Mr. Cochran.
Good morning, board members. Thank
Good
you
morning.
for this opportunity to be before you today. We are here today, Steve Cochran and myself, representing Career Academies and the Offices of Acceleration Innovation. And we want to talk to you about open enrollment briefing for decision. And while I speak to the tech folks, I'm going to see if our PowerPoint will come up on the screen. I want to preface that the information that we want to present to you today comes from a collaboration of multiple departments, as well as a review of over 14 districts in Florida and how they go about their enrollment processes. Additionally, we reached out and reviewed the application and enrollment dates for the 31 charters that we have here in Polk. And we also met internally soliciting feedback from our regional assistant superintendents and our building admins relative to what we want to talk to you about today. So without further ado, I will now hand it over to Steve, and he'll take us through the next few slides.
All right, good morning. The objective of this briefing was to reimagine the way that we do choice applications and controlled open enrollment in our district. Our staff, I want to compliment both our staffs, in Acceleration Innovation and in Workforce, worked extremely hard, did a lot of legwork to bring us what we think is going to be an exciting new opportunity for the parents and the stakeholders here in Polk County. So why look again at the way that we do controlled open enrollment and choice applications? Well, these were our challenges. Particularly, we've had a lot of parents moving into the community, and many of those parents take consideration on their child's education and will come during periods of the summer when we don't normally have an enrollment opportunity, thus making it more difficult for them to access some of the great academies and magnets and school choices that we have here in Polk County. Families are also challenged by the focus application. Having them, we learned a valuable lesson over the pandemic about how many of our parents don't have access to the internet and to electronic applications. We've always known that, but the pandemic really brought that forward. So we realize that that's a challenge for many parents. Also, we've had a description, sort of a nickname that we've come up with in our department called choice jumping, which is when a parent will apply to one program and then again, when another opportunity comes open, they will apply to that and they will move. Now honestly, these are parents trying to do the best opportunity for their children and try to put their child into the right place, but it also causes confusion at the school and changes our numbers and changes units at schools if parents will jump too much. However, we feel like what we have here today will eliminate some of that choice jumping because some of the options will be right up front for them. And parents are often confused by the terminology that we use. We have our choice enrollment, academies enrollment, and then we have controlled open enrollment period. So what we've done is kind of eliminate some of those names that cause confusion and just have an open enrollment period. So, Brian?
Segueing from those challenges, we found that we had opportunities. We wanted to provide electronic and paper access for our families to apply for our schools. We also wanted to establish an application opportunity at schools with vacant seats until the first day of school, so we could make sure to provide families that are moving into our communities access to those schools and their opportunities. We wanted to evaluate the district's position on parents' shopping options after being granted already being at a choice option. And we also knew that we had an opportunity to be more accessible to our families. And we believed that the more likely we were to be accessible, the more likely we were to retain those students within the district, rather than looking out and around in public, private, or charter options in Polk, or for that matter, surrounding districts if they're living on our lines close to other opportunities. And then we also wanted to evaluate the terminologies and see if we could consolidate open enrollment and controlled open enrollment just into one term. So it would be a flow in that regard. So there is a current practice in place that I believe Steve's going to review with us next.
Well, this is what we've been doing, and there have been variations over the past 3 years that I've been here, especially on the start period when we have our first enrollment. So last year, what we did was start the open enrollment period from November to January. Career Academy applications closed in January. Seats for magnet and choice and career options, there would be, if more applied than we had seats, wait lists were built. Special consideration was given for additional opportunities to take applications based on vacant seats only. This was very hit and miss. Some magnet schools were open, would come back and request a few more seats. Others may not request seats at that time, waiting to see if their numbers filled in through their natural progression of their feeder pattern. And additionally, families were not allowed access outside the window. So once we closed our deadlines, unless the school came back to us and said, we want this number of seats, the period was closed. And that was the end of open enrollment.
So that brings us to what we are most excited about to present to you today with all the collaboration and the feedback that I started the presentation with. We are proposing an enrollment window that goes from January 4th to the first day of school. And we simply refer to it as open enrollment all the way through from January to the first day of school. The only caveat is we have an open enrollment 1, an open enrollment 2, and an open enrollment 3. Open enrollment 1 would be January 4th to February 18th. We would take electronic and paper applications upon request at the local schools. The first notification to families of the results of that lottery going out March 28th, which would be directly after spring break. Now, the curious thing is, as the system will close down so we move over into controlled open enrollment, there's going to be that capacity of families who are still moving in or still wanting to solicit for applications at schools. We can still take them and table them because we know that there will be another enrollment opportunity coming up in number 3. But controlled open enrollment will be April 4th through April 29th. And then open enrollment number 3 will be May 2nd, continuing through the opening of the school year 22-23 school year. And we will take only paper applications in this last push from May 2nd to the beginning of school. We are proposing no limits on family choice options, to put it out in the open, the choice jumping piece. We have talked about it. The notion was brought up by regionals and building admin, but we know that even with the choice jumping, families still move around by the various methods of McKay, Hope, Family Empowerment, and all the other options that are out there. So we're excited to present this to you and here to receive any feedback that you have for us as well in that regard, with the hopes of moving forward with these dates and this process for this coming school year. And we'll begin with questions or comments. Lisa?
I just have a question about when you're taking the paper applications. What's the receipt for the parents to know that it's been accepted and being reviewed? If it's electronic, they have some kind of receipt for that. How are we going to ensure them of that with paper?
Those dates get postmarked and stamped when they arrive in our office. And we can do that electronically if they want to scan and send it to us by email.
Okay.
Or if they want to call us and we can email them back or what have you.
So there could be a digital record by email?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have access to email, we'll telephone them and notify them.
Ms. Reynolds?
Thank you. First, can we get a copy of your report at some point? I know it's linked, but I can't get it to open on my computer.
Yes.
So if you don't mind sending it to us, I'd appreciate it. But secondly, just thank you. I know this is something that we've struggled with for years, especially as I serve as the liaison for the academies board, that we have kids that move in the week before school starts and don't really have the choice that kids who lived here 2 years ago do. So thank you for making sure that all of our students have access to these things. I know you talked a little bit about it, but previously, before COVID, we had talked about how to market each of our academies. Do you have any update on, we used to have We3, which was in School Showcase. We had talked about doing those at the schools. Where are we with marketing our academies and making sure that students know about them, particularly those that are in their zone or feeder pattern?
Well, we've started our marketing planning. Again, Brian and I, both of our departments are working together on that. And in lieu of having the We3, we are still intending, COVID permitting, to have a open house, starting with schools, bringing in their feeder pattern schools to show off what they have at each school, but also extending that into the evening, allowing parents who are from out of zone and wish to apply at that school to see what that school has to offer. So that will be one of the major focal points of our marketing plan. But we're also doing billboards, signs. There will be some limited, what are some of the other things that we're proposing?
I'm excited about a virtual option, Ms.
Yeah.
Reynolds, that we're working collaboratively on through the Junior Achievement in Tampa Bay. And that's going to provide a resource that will live on through the application period, not just an up and down for certain periods of time, where families can come in and access remotely and virtually, where they go into, it shows like a dome on the screen, and they walk through the doors and then into a hallway, and there are various booths that they can go into and drive in to receive more information by school that will then link back to our websites collectively by our individual schools and by our departments.
Awesome.
And we've also already started that. We've had some limited access on the Inspire site, so we already have got that rolling. We didn't include every school last year, but this year we're going to grow that.
Awesome. And I know last year, Junior Achievement helped a lot with funding that. Is that the case again this
Are
year?
they giving us a significant discount? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's what I remembered from last year. But just for my colleagues that don't get to go to all of the academy meetings, one of the things that came up from some of our parents and community members in the academy meetings was that we have really great academies that you can't really understand at a booth in RP Funding Center. To go into Lake Region and see all of the cool things they have in their IMAG Academy, their printers and their t-shirt presses and things like that, that it's important to get the students in to see what what there is to offer, as opposed to just seeing a booth at a showcase. So I'm thrilled to hear that we're going to try and get students onto those campuses again this year. Thank you.
One moment, Dr. Allen. Ms. Fields?
Yes, thank you. I want to thank you guys for going back and looking at this and opening up the process so that more people can benefit from it. I know that we have at least one of our magnet schools that have spaces now, and they aren't able to fill those spaces because of the system that we have in place. I did want to ask Mr. Warren, on the no limits for choice jumping, how long does a parent have to make a decision on whether or not they want to choose one school over waiting for another? Because I know that's a factor. In the past, they've had a very short window of time to make a decision, and they might not want the school that they've been, that their child has been selected for. However, they don't want to miss out on an opportunity in case they don't get into the school that they really want their child to be in. I hope that's clear.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. As a matter of process and detail, if the family is offered an acceptance, they have 10 days to respond to that acceptance. At that point in time, if they take the acceptance, they're removed from all other considerations or pools that they're in. If they forfeit that acceptance, they remain in that pool. So if you chase down the choice jumping scenario, they took the acceptance, they would then come off of all other lists and have to go through the process of a reapplication for another school of opportunity for their family.
Thank you for that answer. And I also wanted to commend you guys for going back to the paper, because everyone does not do electronic work. So it's nice to know that parents that don't have the ability to do things electronically can do the paper piece. And hopefully that's going to improve the diversity that we need within our schools.
Thank you.
So thank you. Those were my questions.
Dr. Allen?
Mr. Warren, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Cochran, thank you guys. First thing on this morning, 9 a.m., just all that energy that's coming from you. I'm over here, I would like to jump up and shout hooray for this. To be honest, during my campaign, access was one of the things, primary points of my campaign. And the reason was, in your challenges, that was me. When we, as a family, we moved here from Minnesota 10 years ago. Now, I grew up in Bartow, so don't get me categorized in that Minnesota framework. But when we came back on a teaching contract, and we were trying to settle and make our choice at like August, right before my contract began at Florida Southern. And it was a big challenge. And even this year, I was working with a family, a young parent, probably within a week time frame of school start, and just working through those issues with that parent. So to me, this is a very celebratory thing as far as access. I put a couple of feelers out just to some of my economic stakeholders and so forth about this plan within the last week or so, and they're so excited about it. And I was even thinking about realtors, somebody that's trying to sell a house right there in that July, August framework. Their hands were tied in a sense as far as what those options were for family members. Lisa Miller can probably attest to that a little bit when we closed out that open enrollment period. And I think just a couple months ago or a month ago, as we were like slimming that controlled open enrollment time frame, I was really nervous. I'm like, because it was the 2-month period. You brought it down to the month, and I'm like, man, we're really limiting those options for parents. Mm-hmm. Now, I do know, and I don't know if you have the data on that, but for the controlled open enrollment, I remember asking about that one from last year. We only had about 2% that utilized the controlled open enrollment. But I'm curious, when you look at our magnet and choice programs, what's the capacity look like across the district? And like, for example, you mentioned, a parent goes into the system and they can know immediately if that particular site is available. Maybe speak to that a little bit for me.
One of the things Steve and I had discussed doing this year that would be a new step for us too is working on a way to present to the families electronically. You could access on the web a notice by school. So we felt it was important to not just blindly, if you will, apply for schools where there was an opportunity. So we're having discussions internally to provide either a list of schools or grade level by school, because it would be one thing to apply for a school when you have a specific grade, but we want to keep that information out there and available. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I mean, I was just curious, like, is there a matrix? Like, if I log into the system, I can see this school, there's, 10 seats here, there's 15 seats here, as I'm considering as a parent.
We do track those internally. We have a real-time account as those terminal operators and the like are enrolling those kids. Within our respective offices, the acceptances are offered in that window of time. The 10 days ticks down. Then they have to report to the front office to provide the proofs of residence and enroll a child. So once they enroll that child, then they hit focus, and multiple people inside the system can see the students at that point in time, and we can track the data relative to capacities or open seats.
Right. So to your question, Dr. Allen, the answer is no. We do not have a real-time tracking mechanism for parents to view, nor should there be, respectfully, and here's why. As parents apply to multiple programs, essentially that application takes up a seat. So when they get to that point where they actually choose one program over another, those seats become available again to other applicants. So to put out data that would constantly ebb and flow, that would misrepresent our numbers. Let's take a third grade class, for example. If that family has applied to 4 different programs, they're taking up 4 seats essentially in the application process. Other families may look, that family, because of the number of third graders, may essentially have filled any remaining seats at those 3 other programs. If they choose to go to that alternate, it opens those up. So the problem with providing a real-time data dashboard as far as what seats are available cannot be done, because my concern would be it would dissuade families or basically misrepresent enrollment. I would much rather we continue to take on the task of internally tracking those numbers, because what Brian and his team have been very successful at doing in the past is looking at the total number of applications, and they know what percentage of change that they may see plus or minus each year within programs. And so Brian may say, okay, we only have 300 seats, but I'm going to accept 325 applications because I know we're going to lose 26, 27 applications in the process, or applicants in the process. So internalizing that won't misrepresent seat availability to families, and I don't want to dissuade families in that regard. I think if we wanted to provide something front-facing for families, we could break down each program based off grade level and the total number of seats available, so that they know what the process or how many seats they're competing for. But as far as a real-time measure, I have some serious concerns about misrepresenting our numbers to families.
Yep. But they would have like a red or a green, in essence, like that they could, pursue this particular program.
Yes.
Okay.
To some extent, yes.
How do you think because I know there's been a lot of conversation around redistricting and so forth. What do you think? Will this have any impact collectively on our district? I mean, what do you, like trend-wise, when you've done your research with several other districts, how has that impacted enrollment at other schools across the board?
I think I would begin the conversation in this way. As you review other districts, some of them have choice programs that have come about through consent decrees, unitary status. Some of them are whole district choice. You can look toward Hillsborough, Pinellas, other places like that. With specificity to the magnet and choice schools that I work with, we would be bound by the unitary status that we're currently in those zones and those schools that serve those various zones, which is different than a redistricting discussion relative to a zone population for a traditional zoned school that you would see in the controlled open enrollment period, perhaps.
Okay.
Ms. Cunningham.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you. This has been an issue I think that we've all felt, particularly as school begins to approach each, during the summer and obviously in August. And I know it takes a lot of time and talent to prepare this and to research it, to make sure you know we're doing the right thing. And I think anytime we can continue to work to tweak the process that we have to make it inclusive for all kids and give everybody the opportunities with the wonderful choices that we have in Polk County, I feel like we're second to none. It just warms my heart, and you always hear positive comments from the parents whose children are able to have an opportunity like that to enroll their students. So I know it's been a long time discussion, as many have said, and a long time coming, and takes a lot of time and effort. So I just want to say thank you to you guys and to your department for raising the bar when it comes to choice. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Miller.
I have a couple of things. One, back to what Sarah Beth was talking about with, we have schools that have great IT services and teams. We have a whole competition every year about what great videos they can make. I would encourage using students to cover their own schools and what they offer and constantly have that message out. I would like to see our school, I would like to see our district website just have a place where people can go and just video after video, clicking on what academies are what, because the idea of the We3 was great at the entrance of academies, I think, to show the community what we have, but you really can't see what an IMAG Academy looks like unless you're there. Even Code Academy, which is in my district, until I visited there and saw their 3D printers and what they were doing, that wasn't something they could have shown outside of that space. So I really would like us to use the digital world to, even if we ran a PR campaign on our own social media featuring different ones throughout the months, I think you would get more parent involvement with that. I do have a question also on the marketing angle of it. It is a topic in the real estate world. So the East Polk Association of Realtors and the Lakeland Association of Realtors should be advised of what we're doing here, because on an MLS listing you have to list what schools the zones are for. But if people are asking about academies, we should have information readily available so that they can share with their buyers. I just think that would be helpful. How will this affect scheduling? If we're going to do paper applications right up till the day, traditional schools, how are we going to handle? Do you see a big impact on the scheduling at that point?
I will tell you typically what we see with the data that we track, we're not moving large amounts of kids that apply toward the last minute. I will tell you, as I was on Microsoft Teams meetings with some of the principals, reflecting back on this past cycle and then looking ahead, it's their feedback that week prior to school, a lot of people have already settled in. You have those, I will go out on the record saying single-digit numbers of folks that are still yet moving and about the system trying to get in. It does have an impact relative to the fact that they're either coming from another choice school or another zone school, or perhaps they've not enrolled in school at all, and they're a brand new enrollee. But it does have an impact because there's a school somewhere that's likely had that student on a roster and expecting them to show up with them. But again, in the discussions going up to the first day of school has been that compromise or that change, to give us that opportunity to have families make that decision, to make that choice.
Yeah, we believe it's not going to have a big impact as the summer goes on units at schools. The biggest impact we think of drawing it open is really the new parents coming in during the summer and the parents who are already here who've had a change of family situation, moving across town, maybe an unfortunate separation where the child needs to go to one school or another. So it's going to ease those changes that happen here between families and the new families coming in. I did want to add, we do utilize as much talent as we have in our schools, but I did want to add that this year, within our department, we have added 2 interns, college interns, one from Florida Southern, and they are here specifically to help us with videos and building our marketing campaign, and we're very excited. It's a new program. We're glad to have this young talent in. We're giving them an opportunity to work. Let me give kudos to our public relations department because they're working directly underneath the supervision of the public relations department. So they're learning, we're getting to use their great talent, and it's benefiting both the schools and Polk County schools.
Thank you.
And I wanted to add one more point in closing, as I know our time is drawing to a close. I had a conversation in this discussion with Kevin Levine, Harrison Academy. and he's under the supervision of Beth Cummings. It's our discussion that we'd like to proceed with Harrison as we typically have done in the past, where they run their own period of time where they do their auditions and have their teams review the portfolios for the art students. But we do communicate, and when he releases his acceptances for who's going to be in the program at Harrison, we do that on the same timeline that we do for all of the other programs in the presentation today. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Next topic, we have the revised job description for the Director of Community Liaison. So I'd like to ask Mr. Tony Kirk, Senior Director of Human Resources, to come forward. Mr. Kirk, before you begin, or before you actually go through anything, would you please provide the board with basically a summary as to why a recommendation is being made to modify the job description?
Yes, sir. Good morning, board members. The purpose for this revised position description with community liaison, the Director for Community Liaison, is we want to broaden our internal as well as external applicant pool. We believe that the way the position description is currently constructed, it's a bit restrictive in who can apply for the position. And so in an effort to broaden our talent pool, we're recommending the following revisions under the education and experience. Under the current job description, it has master's degree required. We would like for that to be master's degree preferred. Also, there's a requirement for a certification in educational leadership and/or administration and supervision required. We're asking that that be changed to preferred. And then also, school principal leadership demonstrated at least 5 years of experience and successful experience as a school-based administrator. We're asking that that school principalship demonstrated at least 5 years of experience be struck, and the school-based administrator be preferred. Right. So just to kind of recap: master's degree preferred, supervision or school-based administrator preferred. We believe, again, that that will broaden our applicant pool, both internally as well as externally. Yes.
Oh, I appreciate this change. I was concerned when I saw this, because when you look at a community liaison, and as Mr. Warner described what he did, not that educational school site experience wouldn't be an asset, but that's not the focus of that position. And so I think this will help bring in applicants that may not, we're looking at people who can make collaborations happen, and even financial fundraising stuff that I don't remember being in a principal's purview or even in the ed leadership degree. So I think this may help, and we need to retain the leaders we have because we need strong site leadership. So I'm hoping this will make an opportunity for somebody who has experience with community-based fundraising and/or collaboration. Thank you.
Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde, and I would have to agree with my colleague. I think it's most important when you're looking for someone for this type of a position that we do have a broader base to choose from. And I think a lot of folks may not have those qualifications that we outlined originally, because we want someone who is out in the community, has the talent, has the personality, is collaborative, understands finances, and that person may not fit exactly what we originally had. So I think this is a great move to broaden the scope and allow us to truly get more applicants and candidates for this, what I consider one of the most important positions as we move forward in the times that we're in. So I commend you and I thank you. There are other jobs that I would not feel that way about, but in this situation, we're looking for the best and the brightest, and I think we need to move forward with this. So I support this recommendation wholly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Fields, and then Ms. Reynolds.
Yes, I had a question. I wanted to know, has this position been advertised already, or did we not proceed with that, knowing that we were going to be making possible changes to the job description?
I think we have a position that's vacant, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this concern came to the board previously regarding the narrowness of this particular job description and us wanting to open it up to a wider variety of applicants. And so, if I'm not mistaken, I think that there is still yet a position that needs to be posted, and thus the reason for this particular revision at this time.
Mr. Kirk, specific to her question, did the original job JDs for the two positions post for applicants?
Thank you.
I'm not for sure.
Mr. Green
That
is
was my
indicating,
question.
Ms. Fields, Mr. Green is indicating yes.
Okay.
That it was
And so my
previously
question-
posted, and they felt that the candidate pool was too narrow in scope. In speaking with others, they heard that there were other candidates who arguably may have the appropriate skill set and interest, but did not have those specific criteria that Mr. Kirk had indicated an interest in modifying. This was previously discussed with our previous HR director, associate superintendent for human resources, as far as possible revisions to make them preferred and not required.
Thank you for clarifying that, Superintendent Hyde. So my question now is, for the ones that have already applied for the position, will they have to reapply, or will they automatically be considered for the new posting? One of the things that I've heard, and I'm sure it's not true, but perception is reality, is that the description was modified for a specific person, maybe, and we don't want that to be in anybody's mind. Not in my opinion, do we want that? So my question again is, if the persons have already applied, will they be considered? Will they have to reapply? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yes, ma'am, it does make sense, and I don't believe that they would have to reapply. If the position has not been filled, I believe that all applications will be considered.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Reynolds.
Thank you. And coming from a development world, I think this is the right move to make it where it's preferred as opposed to required. Similar to Ms. Kay's question, so when it's required, it essentially kicks them out of the system, that they're not eligible. So will we be going back through those applicants to make sure anybody that applied previously, if they didn't have their masters or things like that, that we're still reviewing them even though they may have not been eligible before?
Yes, ma'am, I think that would be safe to say that we would go back and review all of the applications that were submitted prior to this revision.
Perfect.
Because again, we want to capture the most broadest base that we can in order to make a nice informed decision on who would fill this position.
And do we have a timeline on re-advertising and hiring for this position?
Based off board approval, we could re-advertise for 14 days, 10 to 14 days, which is customary, and then they would take approximately two and a half weeks to do the formal screening, because again, and in all due respect, I want to make sure we clarify here, simply because someone applies, regardless of meeting the min quals, does not guarantee an interview. That depending on the number of candidates, the skill set and experience of each, we weigh those separately. And so not every individual passes the paper screener and is included in a in-person interview. So I would anticipate that we would have an update for the board as to the final two recommendations for this position by mid-November would be my expectation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Cunningham.
So do you need a consensus from us today to move forward with this, as you just indicated?
Yes, ma'am.
Board members, there's 5 of us present with Ms. Kay on Zoom. Could I have a show of hands to move forward in advertising the position as noted today? Ms. Kay, how do you vote? Do you agree with moving forward?
I agree. I agree. I don't vote, but I agree. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have consensus today.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up will be Mr. Pitts, who will address the remaining 2 topics on the board discussion agenda, workshop agenda. And then I will provide a brief summary of the secondary Perkins grant application, which has been a request from the board, anything exceeding $1 million. Mr. Pitts.
Good morning, board members, esteemed board members. I've asked Mr. Kirk to stay up here and help me along if I misspeak. The first item that I have is a new job description for our network managers. This has actually been in the works for 2 to 3 years. Dr. Barrios and her team have been working on this new job description. I believe that our last job description was written back in 2014, and that role of the network manager has truly evolved. That became very evident during the pandemic, as those network managers not only supported teachers, but also supported students. So along with this new job description will mean movement for those para-network managers, which will come before you in another item with the PA contracts. Current network managers make starting salary is $18,150 in the new PA contract. That starting salary would be $30,000, which is more in line with what the market pays. The high end of that para-network manager job is $32,762. The new high end after 21 levels is $55,809. And that new schedule offers a 3% differentiation between levels. I don't know if there's any questions I can answer for this. Yes, Ms. Reynolds.
So it looks on here like they're going from 10-month to 11-month. Is that correct?
So currently, this is going to be the network manager job description going forward.
Okay.
It will be 11 months. We currently have teachers in network manager positions. They are going to be grandfathered out. They're not going to be affected right now. But going forward, the network managers will be an 11-month. All network managers will be 11 months.
And if I may, through attrition, as teachers retire and things of that nature, then you'll have paras that will transition into these positions. So ultimately, it will be a para position.
Okay. Ms. Reynolds?
So will this limit if there's a teacher in a network manager position at school A and they want to move to school B, will that limit their ability to move schools or to accept other positions that are the same position but at a different school?
We have not limited that transfer.
Okay.
It'll just be new hires coming in.
Awesome.
Okay. Last item, Polk Education Association paraeducator and clerical support staff contract negotiations.
Very excited to bring this before the board. During the summer, finance team, HR team, and PA have been discussing the Polk Education contract negotiations and 2-year salary agreement. On September 23rd, that tentative agreement was advertised. On October 7th, the electronic ballots were sent out. October 12th, which was last night at 5 p.m., the voting closed. And I'm glad to say that for our support, our ESPs, our support group, which is about 534 employees, 296 of them voted. 94.9% voted yes, 281 with 15 of no, which was 5.1%, so it was an overwhelming yes. On the paraeducator side, which we have approximately 1,546 paras, 538 of them voted, 528 voted yes, 10 no, so that was a 98.1% overwhelming yes by those two groups. So just to give you some of the high points of these agreements, the PA represents approximately 9,558 employees, 1,546 paraeducators, 534 educational support, 6,978 teachers. Now, the teacher salary is not been decided yet. We're still going through the TSIA negotiations and discussions with the PA, and that'll come before you at a later date. The term of these contracts before you is July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. The two-year salary agreement encompasses the current 2021-2022 and the next 2022-2023 school year. Following the board approval, the salary increases will be effective retroactively to July 1st, 2021. In July 2021, the district and the PA began collective bargaining for the current school year. After 8 negotiation meetings, the party concluded paraeducator and ESP contract negotiations. The substantive collective bargaining agreement revisions are outlined below. In preparation for the incremental increase of the minimum wage to $15 an hour by September 2026, the Joint Subcommittee for the Support Staff Salaries proposed the following wage increases in the July 29, 2021 signed tentative agreement. Retroactive to July 1st, 2021, all effective hourly rates will be increased to a new minimum base entry-level rate of $11 an hour. The increase in the new base salary will require compression of a number of levels available on each schedule. As a result of this level compression, salary levels will no longer equate to years of service. Salaries and any salary level movement will continue to be collectively bargained annually and subject to ratification. Retroactively to July 1st, 2021, all employees will receive a 2% increase on their current salary level with the exceptions noted below. After reaching the new $11 an hour minimum base rate, for employees in item 1 above who do not receive at least a 2% increase, they will also receive the difference up to no more than 2% salary increase. So as they move to $11, if they didn't receive a 2% increase, they will get the additional pay to move them to that 2%. Employees who are currently on a board-approved unpaid leave of absence will receive the appropriate increase following their return to active employment as long as there is no break in service. Eligible employees who worked 1 day over 1/2 of the 2021 contract year will receive an advance of 1 salary level. That's typically around January 15th. They had to have been employed since January 15th. Those already at the top of their respective schedules will receive a 3% increase in addition to the above 2% increase added to their current salary level. Paraeducator network managers, which we just discussed, will only move laterally to their new salary schedule for 21-22 due to their specific pay grade improvements. For 2022-2023, eligible employees who worked 1 day over 1/2 of the 21-22 contract year will advance 1 salary level. Those at the top of their respective schedules will receive a 3% increase. In the event that there is a fluctuation, and this matches what we just agreed with ASME, in the event that there's a fluctuation in the total funding per student received from the FEFP greater than or equal to 2% in either direction, positive or negative, or if the assigned, unassigned general fund balance is projected to fall below 3% in accordance with state statute, the parties will agree to renegotiate automatic salary advancements. This provision supersedes any other language regarding financial urgency in the 3 PEA collective bargaining agreements. In addition to the salary increases above, new annual salary supplements were added for both groups to include a 200 health contact supplement, those serving as the health contact designated support for the school clinic nurse, and $200 working at a designated Title I school. Also, the daily substitute pay for paraeducators covering classes in the absence of a teacher due to the lack of an available sub will increase from $20 to $50 per day. If the position is filled for just half a day, 3.25 hours the paraeducator will receive a $25 supplement. We already have an MOU in place that addresses this year with that exact language. The annual paraeducator supplements for an education degree program were expanded to include a degree related to the position. Employees with degrees related to their current job title will now be compensated based on completion of semester hours, $500 for 30 or 60 hours, and $700 for 90 hours, or a BA, BS degree. I'm going to skip a little bit here. Terminal sick leave pay, contract language for payment of sick leave following separation of service will comply with the school board policies that we revised back in February and the teacher collective bargaining agreement approved by the board on April 27th. For the 2022 health plan, in addition to the contract language, the self-funded health insurance plan for 2022 calendar year, that begins January 1st, 2022, was jointly negotiated with the Polk Education Association and AFSCME Local 2227 employee groups. For the fourth consecutive year, the school board has increased the monthly contribution, including the $40 health center assessment, to the self-funded health plan for active employees as outlined below. No changes have been made to the employee rates or plan design, deductibles, co-payments, et cetera, since January 1st, 2019. Earlier in the year, we brought you some information about the health plan, and it was obvious that the board really did not submit or did not propose that the employees' premiums were increased, so we have kept those the same. Starting in 2022, the board will be funding $9,768 for premiums for each employee on the plan. As a part of the agreement, there will also be no increases for employee or optional dependent premium. Full-time benefit employees will continue to have a health insurance at no cost to the employee for the upcoming year. So how much is this going to cost? The board will incur approximately $5,520,000 in additional costs with the increased contribution to the self-funded health plan. The 2-year paraeducator and educational support personnel salary settlement will cost the district an additional $5.9 million. And as of now, our finance team projects that the general fund balance should be at 4.44% in June 30th, 2022. Questions that I can answer for you? Yes, ma'am.
Can we get those final numbers that you're reading emailed over? I don't see it on.
Sure.
That will just be helpful. Thank you.
Thought that you had them. I apologize for that.
That's all right. We may have and not the right file I'm looking at. Thank you.
I went through it very fast. Ms. Reynolds.
Hello. So if this gets ratified, or if we approve this today, when will they see this in paychecks?
They will see it in the end of the month, October paycheck, so the end of this month.
Thank you.
Ms. Fields?
Thank you. I want to thank the staff for the hard work that they have done. This is not something that just happened overnight. You all have been working on this for a while, and I want to thank PEA folks for working alongside with us. We're very excited about the opportunity that this affords our staff, especially the ones that don't make the kind of money that we would like for them to be able to make. I am thankful that you all were able to include something that talks about if there is any fluctuation in the total funding per student received from the FELP greater than or equal to 2% in either direction, that we'll go back and we'll revisit this. Hopefully that won't occur, but it's good to know that that is something that was agreeable. So I would just say, as it relates to the health plan. I know that we have not charged anything to the employees, and we talked about it for a long window of time. And I'm happy that we are able to not do it for the next year or two. But I think that we all know that at some point in time, that's going to need to be revisited unless something changes for the good. So I just want to make sure that, that those comments are made and they are on record. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Ms. Miller?
I appreciate that. I finally got that page to open. It was slower than I was expecting. Back to the health plan that Ms. Fields referred to, that is a very important point for many of the board members who understand that what we pay, it's part of the package, it's part of the recruitment that we have here for staff, especially if you look outside the teachers, just the paras. I know a lot of the paras decide to work for us for little to nothing based on that benefit. So in the future, I'm not sure, do we wait till it expires, or do we constantly look for rates or competitive markets with health insurance? Is it done at one point, or is that something that's looked at?
It's really all throughout the year,
Okay.
and we have 4 quarterly meetings that involve union staff that our providers really give a look at what's happening in the market. But it's honestly looked at all the time.
Thank you.
Dr. Allen?
Thanks, Mr. Pitts, for the clarity and just your even kill nature. It's very affirming. Just following up on the healthcare conversation, yeah, I was surprised. I was at the FSBA conference just a few weeks ago, and when I was communicating about our health plan, several other board members from different districts, they were quite surprised that, it's zero for a single member. And I just want to reiterate that that's an awesome incentive. And I think it was very affirming that the board held steady on that as well, because, we see we're obviously honoring our employees, which is a great thing. And I don't think it would have been wise on our part in the midst of that to then increase that rate. So happy that we did that. Thanks for, keeping us in tune with that 4.4%. Hopefully we'll stay steady on that. I know there's the 5% board policy. I'm a little concerned on the fluctuation statements. I like the fluctuation statement as it relates to the increase, but maybe a little concerned like when that decrease happens. So I'm curious about the logic on that language, because here we're given a commitment in a sense, and I would say that we honor that commitment, that this is what we're moving towards within the next 2 years. But I recognize the language. I just heard a little dialogue around that during the bargaining conference that we did. So I'm just curious about that language in particular.
So that language stems from the fact that this is a 2-year agreement.
Yeah.
And we want to keep that dialogue open with the union, and whether we receive an additional amount of money, or if we see a decrease from the state, which we all pray that never happens, that we would reopen those discussions so we could limit that impact to our employees and figure out what's best for our district. It's just to reopen that dialogue.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the goal of that.
I appreciate that.
There.
There was about maybe 2 months ago, you unpacked, there were about 245 employees that we got to that $10 an hour mark, meaning that, that was the amount of employees that were not receiving $10 an hour, 245. How many does this impact to actually get to $11 an hour?
That is a good question.
You can send it to me later.
I may have
once
to send it to you. I do not think I have that.
Ms. Jenkins, if I recall correctly, we provided this summary at a previous board meeting when the board approved the recommendations for the contract negotiations. If you would forward me those summaries again, I'll provide those to the board. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And then just to reiterate as well on the terminal sick leave that we voted on as a board February 23rd, and still interacting with teachers that are unaware of that change in policy, which is a great change as well that we did to really recognize and honor our employees as well, going from the 50% to 100%. So just wanted to reiterate that as you went through your summary on that. So again, thanks.
Yes,
for the
sir, and that's
clarity.
after 13 years.
Correct.
It's a schedule, and then once you hit that 13 years,
Yep.
it does
Mhm.
go
And
from
it's
50%
scaled
payout.
before the
Yeah.
13 years,
Yes, sir.
correct.
Just
Mhm.
want to clarify that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sure. So the last item, it's listed under information, but since it exceeds the $1 million threshold, it's been requested previously that I introduce and discuss these during workshop, so as not to take up additional time during the board meetings. So you see in there, there's a Perkins grant application for 1.245, or $1,245,476. And so just as a reminder, the Carls Perkins Secondary Grant continues to support the development and expansion of our career academies here in Polk County. Specifically, it allows for us to provide resources and funding to continue with curriculum mapping and curriculum development for each one of those respective academy and career academy programs. It also allows us to continue to expand our partnerships and articulation agreements with our institutions of higher education, whether that's Embry-Riddle, whether it's Polk State, or other entities here across our county. It also allows us to certify or seek national certification for several of our emerging academies. For example, this year the focus is on 3 primary areas. Our culinary program, our construction programs that are housed in 4 separate locations, and our engineering program will all be applying for that national certification. It also provides supports for students through academic tutoring and recruitment for non-traditional careers to promote equity between our genders. And also academic assessments and improvement plans, project-based learning for all of our work sites, and lastly, professional development for our teachers, because this is a very specific and unique area, and so we want to make sure that they maintain a high level of understanding of current instructional or relevant practices in those fields of study. So that is a summary. Again, this is a renewing, an annually reoccurring grant, but since it exceeded the $1 million threshold, it's been requested by the board that I provide summaries of those. Outside of that, there's one other additional item on there for information only. Professional learning catalog has been discussed previously. That's the comprehensive catalog of professional development and other opportunities we provide for our staff, and when they'll be available. It's also previously called our Master In-Service Plan, and that concludes both the discussion items and information items today.
So next on our agenda is a board agenda review.
Yes, ma'am. So Ms. Reynolds, as the acting chair at this time, I would remind the board that item A5, the revision to the 21-22 tentative school calendar for students, teachers, and paraeducators has been stricken. At this time, we will not be addressing the calendar today.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Section D, approval of minutes? Section E, the consent agenda. Section L is the consent agenda, human resources, which is the contract negotiations and salary agreement. Superintendent's report. You have a report today?
I do not.
You do not have a report. Attorney's report with you.
If you'd like, I can walk you through what I'm presenting today.
That would be wonderful.
Save some time later.
Sure.
What is being brought to you today is final agency action in a bid protest. Pardon me. It's final agency action in a bid protest in a case called Zayo Group LLC versus the School Board of Polk County, Florida, and Wenrack Holdings LLC and Wenrack LLC. This was a bid protest. There was an RFP put on the street last December for wide area network services for Lakeland. These are big contracts, fiber optic contracts. They're infrastructure. And there were 5 proposals submitted. 3 of them were responsive. 2 were not and were discounted. There was a committee of experienced district information technology folks who served as the evaluation committee for this, and they came back with a recommendation that award be made to WANRAC. The WANRAC's bid was approximately $12.5 million. Zayo Group protested. Now, this was not a low-cost contract. This was a best value contract. Zayo's price to the school board was like $10.5 million. So it was a lower cost, but a different solution, and the committee evaluated the WANRAC proposal higher, all factors considered, including price. These are E-rate contracts. E-rate is a program under the Federal Communications Commission, in which public school districts and other agencies receive federal funding to subsidize these sorts of purchases. The federal subsidy in this case, I believe, will be about 90%. So if it's a $12.5 million contract, the board's share of that will be about 1.25, and the feds will pick up the rest. The protest that was filed alleged that the school board's award was arbitrary and capricious, clearly erroneous, contrary to the RFP specifications, that the committee awarded points to WANRAC to which it was not entitled, and that WANRAC's proposal violated the E-rate requirements. Unfortunately, protests in these sorts of acquisitions are increasingly common because the infrastructure that these companies are installing also can be used by them for other purposes in other contracts. So they're very attractive, and so they're highly competitive, and we're seeing an uptick in protests of these E-rate awards. In any event, the school board voted, let's see, I want to say, yes, in February 23, to award the contract to WANRAC. Zayo protested. We initially dismissed their protest because we did not believe the protest bond that Zayo had submitted was adequate. They litigated that at the circuit court. We went to the appellate court, and ultimately it was decided, let's just go ahead and throw it to the administrative law judge and let the ALJ also rule on that issue in the interest of time, because E-rate funding is on an annual cycle, and if you go past a certain date, you lose the opportunity for this year and you'd be pushed into next year. So we went ahead and sent it to an administrative law judge from the Division of Administrative Hearings. This was pretty much a full-time job for a bunch of lawyers for about 3 months. For them, for us, and WANRAC also intervened. So we had Hill Ward Henderson litigating for Zayo. We had Peterson Myers for WANRAC. Stidham and Boswell and Dunlap both participated in this for the district. The hearing took 5 days, 2 days, I think 3 days in person and 2 days by Zoom. And we got a recommended order from the administrative law judge on September the 17th, in which the administrative law judge found in favor of the district and recommended that the district dismiss the protest, award the contract to WANRAC, and that's why we are here today. Both parties had the opportunity to submit exceptions. It's been a while since we've had an administrative hearing that goes this far, but you'll recall both parties have the opportunity to submit exceptions, which the board can grant or deny based on your review of the entire record. In this instance, neither party submitted exceptions. So the recommended order from the administrative law judge is here for you today, and my recommendation to you is that you adopt it in its entirety. We provided a recommended order a final order for your adoption that would do precisely that. And if you do that today, we will immediately transmit that final agency action to the Second District Court of Appeals, and ask them to relinquish jurisdiction of the case so that this protest will be over and we can proceed with the construction of the wide area network in Lakeland by WNRAC LLC. There's a lot of legalese in there, and it was a procedurally involved case. Are there any questions that I can answer for you?
Mr. Bridges, I'd wait for the actual board meeting. Mr. Wilson would be joining us, and so it may seem repetitive to answer similar questions.
Just so.
Thank you.
All right. No auditors report today? Thank you. And then we'll do board members' reports, and then public comments addressing items not on today's agenda, and the adjournment. Any questions on any of this? Okay. Now, back to the work session. Any board member comments for the work session?
No comments today.
No comments. Ms. Fields, any comments for the work session?
Ms. Fields does.
Does.
Yes, I had my hand up. I am not going to be able to make the meeting today. I was wanting to make it known that I will not be present. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. And that concludes our work session. We'll reconvene at 11 o'clock for the special called board meeting.
Thank you.